My name is Maris Lorne, and I spent 25 years believing my best friend was the kind of woman you protected, not the kind you had to protect people from. But at her baby shower, while everyone cried over her miracle pregnancy and a widow held a $185 donation check in her hands, my doctor husband grabbed my wrist and whispered, "We have to go now." I thought he had humiliated me. Then he told me Celeste was not pregnant. By the next morning, I found out the fake belly was only the beginning. She had used my name, my license, and my friendship to sell a lie that was about to destroy an entire charity. Chapter 1. The baby shower that felt too perfect. April 12, 2025 was supposed to be the day I celebrated my best friend's miracle. Instead, it became the day I learned how many times I had mistaken silence for loyalty. Celeste Rowan had been my best friend since 2001, when we were 14 and convinced that every secret we shared under the bleachers at Savannah Park High meant we would be sisters forever. She was the kind of girl people turned toward without meaning to. Beautiful, bright, wounded, in a way that made you want to protect her before you even understood from what. For years I thought that was tenderness. I thought Celeste simply felt everything too deeply. Later, I would understand that sometimes need can look like love when you are young enough or loyal enough to keep feeding it. My husband, Dr. Celeste Rowan, drove us to her house that Saturday afternoon without saying much. Ellis was 43, an emergency medicine physician at Chesapeake Mercy Hospital, and the calmest person I had ever known. He did not enjoy gossip. He did not enjoy scenes. If a room was on fire, Ellis was the man who would find the exit before raising his voice. That was why his silence bothered me. He had been quiet since we left our house. At first, I blamed his shift. He had worked late the night before, and I knew the hospital had been short-staffed. But then I noticed him glancing at my phone every time it lit up in the cup holder. Celeste had texted again, "Please don't be late. I need you in the main photos." I smiled when I saw it because it sounded like Celeste. She had always treated photographs like evidence that life had loved her properly. But Ellis did not smile. His eyes stayed on the road, his jaw tighter than usual. I asked if something was wrong. He said he was fine, but his voice had that careful flatness doctors use when they do not want to alarm a patient before they have all the facts. Celeste's house in Savannah Park looked like something staged for a lifestyle magazine. Lavender and cream balloons arched over the front steps. White hydrangeas spilled from tall glass vases. A photographer moved across the lawn with 2 cameras slung over her shoulder. Near the porch, a mocktail bar had been set up beside a sign that read "Welcome Baby Eden." For 1 second, I forgot Ellis's silence. I stood there holding the wrapped ceramic mobile I had bought and felt my throat tighten. Celeste had lost a pregnancy in October of 2023, 8 weeks. She had not told me until weeks later, and even then she had said it quickly, like she was ashamed of how much it hurt. When she announced this pregnancy, I cried on the phone with her. I told her Eden was her rainbow after the storm. I wanted that to be true so badly that I think a part of me walked into that baby shower already defending her. Inside, the house was even more elaborate. The living room had been cleared to make space for a backdrop covered in pale flowers. The long table held gifts wrapped in cream paper and silk ribbon. Another table displayed Glossio Outreach for Edenbridge Maternal Outreach, the nonprofit Celeste, founded to help low-income women access prenatal care. There were guests I recognized from our old friend circle, but there were also women in pearls, men in sport coats, and local charity people I had seen at fundraising luncheons, not baby showers. This was not just a party. It was an event. Celeste appeared from the dining room, like she had been waiting for the room to notice her. She wore a soft pink dress that curved over her belly, one hand resting just above it in that practiced, tender way pregnant women do when they know everyone is looking. Her blonde hair was pinned back loosely. Her smile was radiant. "Maris," she said, across the room to hug me carefully, angling her body so our shoulders touched, but my hands never came near her stomach. My sister before blood could ever matter. I hugged her back and felt guilt wash through me for ever thinking something felt off. Adrian Vale, her husband, stood near the fireplace speaking to an older couple with donor badges pinned to their lapels. He was 41, polished, soft-spoken, the kind of man who could make a request sound like a favor he was doing you. Vivian Rowan, Celeste's mother, floated between guests with a smile that never warmed her eyes. Lenora, Celeste's younger sister, moved in and out of the kitchen, checking her phone, pale and distracted. Sloane Mercer waved at me from near the gift table, proudly telling someone she had made a ceramic keepsake for baby Eden. Ophelia Grant, our therapist friend, stood beside her, quiet, watching Celeste more than the decorations. Graham Rowan, Celeste's brother, lifted his camera toward us and lowered it again without taking the shot. Then Ellis touched my elbow. Across the room stood Dr. Nathaniel Pike, an OB-GYN I had heard Ellis mention before. He was speaking with Penelope Graves, a 72-year-old widow behind the Graves Family Foundation. Penelope held a cream envelope and dabbed at her eyes with a folded tissue. I whispered that I did not know Dr. Pike was close to Celeste. Ellis said he did not either. There was something in his face that made me stop smiling. Before I could ask, Celeste took my hand and guided me toward the floral backdrop. Penelope wanted a few photos before the short program, she said. Her fingers were cold around mine. She introduced me to Penelope as the woman who had been beside her through every step of this pregnancy. I hesitated. I had not been beside her through every step. I had never gone to an appointment. I had never seen an ultrasound, except the glossy print Celeste texted the group chat. But Penelope smiled at me with such gratitude that I told myself Celeste meant emotionally. Best friends were allowed to speak in shorthand. Penelope held up the symbolic pledge for $185,000, money intended for the Edward Graves Memorial Mobile Unit, a mobile ultrasound program named after her late husband. Celeste spoke softly about grief becoming care, about Eden being proof that loss did not have to be the end of a story. Penelope cried. I felt tears sting my own eyes. Then I looked at Ellis. He was not watching Penelope. He was watching Celeste. A woman asked Celeste if she had passed her glucose test yet. Celeste laughed, touching her belly as if the question were adorable, then shifted the conversation to mocktail recipes. Another guest asked if Eden kicked more at night or in the morning. Celeste smiled and said the baby had her own schedule, then turned toward the photographer before anyone could ask more. On the table beside the donor brochures was an ultrasound photo in a silver frame. I had seen it before, or thought I had. Ellis glanced at it, then at the brochure, then back at Celeste. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Celeste bent to accept a bouquet from Vivian, and for 1 second, the curve beneath her dress moved in a way that did not look like a body shifting. It looked stiff. Artificial. Like something strapped too tightly under fabric. I looked away before the thought could form. Ellis looked across the room at Dr. Pike. The older doctor did not say anything. He did not come over. He simply met Ellis's eyes with a look of grave concern and gave the smallest shake of his head. A few feet away, Adrian was speaking low near Vivian. I only caught fragments, but Ellis was closer. Once Maris is in the photos, nobody will question the timeline. Then, after a pause, we just need the Graves pledge to clear. Celeste turned toward the room and tapped a spoon gently against her glass. She thanked everyone for being there, thanked Penelope for believing in Edenbridge, then looked straight at me. Maris, would you come say a few words? Everyone should hear from the person who has seen this journey up close. My stomach fluttered with nerves. I thought she wanted me to say something kind. Something about friendship and hope. Something a licensed clinical social worker could say that would make the donors feel even better about giving. Before I could step forward, Ellis took my wrist. Not hard, not controlling, just firm enough to stop me. We have to go, now. Heat rushed to my face. I whispered that he was embarrassing me. He did not let go. I looked at him, really looked, and saw fear under the calm. Not jealousy, not annoyance. Fear, so I mumbled something about a hospital emergency. Celeste's smile stayed in place, but her eyes went cold for half a second. Vivian stared at me as if I had knocked over the cake. Adrian's mouth tightened, though he tried to laugh it off. I barely remembered walking to the car. The moment the doors closed, I turned on Ellis. I told him he had humiliated me. I told him Celeste was my best friend, that she had been through enough, that whatever weird feeling he had could have waited 20 minutes. Ellis pulled away from the curb and did not answer until we were out of the neighborhood. Then he said, Celeste isn't pregnant. I laughed because my body did not know what else to do. That is not funny, I said. He told me he was not judging her body. He said women carry pregnancy differently, and he would never make a claim like that because someone looks small or graceful at 29 weeks. Then he listed what he had seen. Her timeline did not match her prenatal answers. She avoided basic questions any patient that far along would usually know. The ultrasound photo listed a clinic she had never mentioned, and the date formatting looked wrong. Dr. Pike had shown serious concern without disclosing anything private. The movement under her dress looked like a prosthetic belly. And Adrian had just said, my name would make people stop questioning the timeline. I wanted to reject every word. Celeste had lost a baby. She knew what that pain meant. No one who had lived that would fake it. Ellis kept his voice soft. Pain can be real, Maris, and the story can still be false. That sentence hit me harder than anything else, because suddenly I remembered all the little things I had excused. Celeste never let anyone touch her stomach. She changed her due date twice. She always had reasons I could not come to appointments. Every photograph was angled. Every update was emotional but strangely short on details. My phone lit up in my lap. Celeste had texted, You left before the important part. We need to talk. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. For the first time in 25 years, I did not know how to answer my best friend. Chapter 2. The journal Lenora was too afraid to keep. Did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Celeste in that soft pink dress, one hand curved over her stomach, smiling at Penelope Graves, as if hope itself had chosen her body as a home. Then I heard Ellis's voice again, low and steady in the car. Pain can be real, Maris, and the story can still be false. Around 2 in the morning, I opened the Severna Park Community Facebook group. Edenbridge Maternal Outreach had already posted photos from the shower. Celeste stood under the flower-covered backdrop with Penelope on one side and me on the other, my face caught in that awkward half-smile people wear when they do not know they are being used. The caption read, "Our founder Celeste Rowan, surrounded by women who witnessed her journey." Witnessed. I stared at that word until my coffee went cold beside me. I had not witnessed anything. I had not gone to a single appointment. I had not heard a heartbeat. I had not seen a real ultrasound in a doctor's office. I had only witnessed my own willingness to believe Celeste, because not believing her felt like cruelty. By morning, I had made a plan. I texted Celeste and told her I thought I had left my pale blue shawl at her house. It was a lie, but a small one, and even as I typed it, the irony made my stomach twist. Her reply came within 2 minutes. "I'm at a doctor appointment in Annapolis. Nor can let you in." I read the message twice. Then I called Ellis. "I'm going over there," I said. He was quiet for a second, not because he was angry, but because he was choosing his words carefully. "Do not confront her," he said. "Do not search through private papers. Observe, get your shawl and leave. Share your location with me." "I know, Maris, I know," I repeated, softer this time. I shared my location, told him I would call in 20 minutes, and drove back to Severna Park with both hands locked around the steering wheel. From the street, Celeste's house looked tired. The balloons over the porch had begun to sag. Flower petals had fallen across the steps. The cheerful sign still read, "Welcome Baby Eden." But in the gray morning light, it looked less like a celebration and more like a prop someone had forgotten to pack away. Celeste's SUV was not in front of the house. For 1 second, I wondered if I had been wrong. Then I walked up the driveway and saw the back corner of her white SUV tucked behind the garage, half hidden by stacked floral buckets and leftover event crates. She was not at a doctor appointment. My hands went cold. Lenora opened the door before I even knocked a second time. She looked like she had not slept either. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, her eyes dark underneath, her sweatshirt wrinkled like she had grabbed it off a chair. "She said you might come," Lenora said. There was no surprise in her voice, only exhaustion. "I just need to find my shawl," I said. Lenora stepped aside. The house felt different without guests in it. Yesterday it had been music, perfume, laughter, cameras. Now it smelled like wilting flowers and sugar. The gift table was still covered in cream-wrapped boxes. Half-deflated balloons dragged against the ceiling. A stack of Edenbridge brochures sat by the fireplace, perfectly aligned, as if even the aftermath needed to look curated. On the dining table, I noticed a glass of red wine and a plate with the remains of a steak. Nora saw me looking. "That was Adrian's," she said too quickly. I did not answer, I just nodded. "Maybe I left the shawl upstairs," I said. "Near the nursery." Lenora's face changed at the word nursery. Not dramatically. "Just enough. I'll come with you." Nursery was beautiful. In the way showroom nurseries are beautiful. Cream walls, a painted mural of soft green trees, a white crib beneath a mobile of tiny ceramic stars. On the shelf, board books were arranged by color. A blanket embroidered with Eden lay over the rocking chair. But nothing felt used. The crib mattress was still sealed in plastic. The baby monitor sat unplugged beside its instruction booklet. The diapers were stacked in unopened boxes. Tiny dresses hung in the closet with tags still attached. The embroidered blanket had stiff fold lines, like it had never been washed. I touched the edge of it and felt a kind of grief I could not name. "She doesn't sleep in here," Lenora whispered. I turned to her. "She just comes in and talks." "Talks to who?" Lenora looked toward the doorway, then down at the floor. Before she could answer, Vivian's voice drifted from downstairs, sharp even when lowered. "No one needs details. Celeste needs loyalty, not judgment." Lenora went pale. A moment later, Vivian appeared in the hallway. She wore beige slacks, a pearl necklace, and the calm expression of a woman who believed appearances were a form of religion. "Maris," she said. "I didn't realize you were coming by. I left my shawl yesterday. How thoughtful of you to come quietly. Celeste needs rest. At 29 weeks, stress can be very hard on the body." The way she said 29 weeks felt rehearsed. "I won't stay long," I said. Vivian looked from me to Lenora, then smiled. "You've always been the reasonable one." After she went back downstairs, Lenora gripped my wrist and pulled me into the laundry room. She closed the door with trembling fingers. I can't keep this anymore, she said, from behind a stack of folded towels. She took out a journal wrapped in a dishcloth. I stared at it. Lenora, I can't take her private journal. I'm not giving it to you as legal evidence, she said quickly. I know that's messy, I know, but you need to understand what this is. If I give it to my mother, disappears. If I give it to Adrian, he edits the truth. If I give it to Celeste, she turns it into a speech. You're the only one she might still hear. My throat tightened. Where did you find it? In the nursery. Adrian said anything that could be misunderstood needed to be gone before the board started asking questions. The board? Lenora let out a short, humorless laugh. You still think this is just about a baby shower? Before I could respond, a voice carried from outside the laundry room window. Celeste. She was in the side yard, speaking on the phone. The Graves pledge has to clear before anything changes, she said. I can't lose the mobile unit now. Not after everything. There was no panic in her voice, no confusion, no grief breaking through the edges. She sounded focused, calculated. Lenora shut her eyes like the words physically hurt. I slid the journal into my bag with hands that did not feel like mine. When I left, Vivian was waiting by the front door. You've always been the reasonable one, Maris, she said again. Don't let your husband's imagination hurt a woman who already lost enough. I looked at her and realized she did not need to know every detail to protect the lie. She only needed to believe the family image mattered more than the damage. I did not answer her. I called Ellis from the car before I pulled out of the driveway. She lied about the appointment, I said. Her SUV is here. I heard her talking about the Graves pledge. Lenora gave me a journal. Come home, Ellis said immediately. Do not read it in the car. So I went home. We sat at the kitchen table with the blinds half closed and the journal between us like something alive. I opened it slowly, already ashamed of what I might find, already terrified of finding nothing. The first entries were from late October 2023. They broke my heart. Celeste wrote to Eden like she was writing across a room she could not enter. She apologized for losing her. She asked if the baby had been scared. She wrote that her body had betrayed them both. She wrote that she could still feel the space where hope had been. I cried reading those pages. So did Ellis, though he only wiped his eyes once and looked away. For a few minutes, I wanted to close the journal and pretend that pain explained everything. Then the entries changed. By late 2024, Eden was no longer a baby Celeste had lost. Eden was coming back. Eden had a room. Eden had a purpose. Eden would make the work matter. Celeste had written names in the margins. Graves Family Foundation, Rowan Women's Circle, Hampton Community Health. Then one line made my skin go cold. If they see Eden, they'll fund the unit. If they fund the unit, then she mattered. I turned the page with shaking fingers. The final entry had been written 2 weeks before the shower. Once Maris stands beside me, no one will doubt me. She is the truth people believe when they don't trust me. The kitchen went silent around us. All those years, I had thought being trusted by Celeste meant I was loved. I had thought being needed meant I mattered. But sitting there with her handwriting under my hands, I understood something I had spent 25 years avoiding. I had not just been fooled, I had been chosen. I closed the journal and looked at Ellis. I think I was never her best friend, I said. I was her alibi. Chapter 3. The cabin confession. The next morning, Celeste's message came just after sunrise. While the journal still lay on my kitchen table like a wound neither of us knew how to bandage. I need to tell you the truth before everyone else turns it into something ugly. Lake Anna, noon, come alone. I read it once, then again, and I slid the phone across the table to Ellis. He did not say no immediately, which was how I knew he understood what Lake Anna meant. The Rowan family cabin sat on a quiet stretch of water in Virginia, about 2 hours from Savannah Park. When Celeste and I were teenagers, it had been the place where we whispered secrets on the dock, shared sunscreen and stolen wine coolers, cried over boys who did not deserve either of us. It was also the place where I made the promise Celeste had used for half my life. If you ever need me, I'll come. At 14, that sounded like friendship. At 39, it sounded like a contract I had never been allowed to renegotiate. I'm going with you, Ellis said. She won't talk if she sees you. Then I'll stay nearby. Nodded because I was done confusing bravery with recklessness. I shared my location with him. I turned on voice memo before I got out of the car. I parked facing the gravel road, not the lake, so I could leave fast if I needed to. Ellis stayed 15 minutes away at a gas station outside town, and we agreed I would check in after 30 minutes. On the drive, memories kept rising up like things shaken loose from the bottom of a drawer. Celeste calling me the night before my clinical licensing exam, sobbing so hard I skipped my final reviews session to sit on her bathroom floor. Celeste borrowing $600 for an emergency, then showing up 2 weeks later in a dress that cost almost as much. Celeste saying, "You're the only one who understands me." Every time I tried to say I was tired. For years, I had called that loyalty. Now I wondered if loyalty was just the word I used, because training sounded too ugly. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered. Weathered gray siding, screened porch, pine needles scattered across the steps. The lake beyond it was flat and silver under a dull spring sky. Celeste opened the door before I knocked. She was not wearing the belly. That was the first thing my eyes saw and the last thing my mind wanted to accept. No soft pink dress, no careful glow, no hand resting over a curve that did not exist. She stood in an oversized gray sweater and leggings, her hair unwashed, her eyes red and swollen. The woman from the baby shower had looked like hope under professional lighting. The woman in front of me looked like someone who had been performing so long she no longer knew where the costume ended. "I was going to tell you," she said. I stepped inside but did not move toward her. "Then tell me without making me comfort you first." Her face crumpled at that, not because it was cruel, but because it was new. I had never made her stand alone in her first sentence before. Celeste sank onto the old plaid sofa. I stayed in the armchair from her, close enough to listen, far enough to remember I could leave. "It started after the miscarriage," she said. "When?" "October 2023. 8 weeks?" She nodded, looking down at her hands. "Adrian was in London. My mother said I should not make a tragedy public before I even understood it myself. You had just gotten promoted at Maple Harbor. Everyone was proud of you. I didn't want to steal another good thing from you." That hurt because it sounded like a kindness and because I knew it was also a door she had closed without asking me. "I would have come," I said. "No. No, Celeste. You don't. You decided what I could handle and then you punished me later for not being there." Her mouth trembled. For the first time, she did not argue. She told me about the journal. At first, writing to Eden was just how she survived. She bought a blanket because leaving the baby's section empty-handed made her feel like the loss had swallowed her whole. Then a onesie. Then a tiny pair of socks. Then the nursery, because the room across from hers felt unbearable when it was empty. Vivian knew. She called it private grief, Celeste said. As long as I kept showing up to luncheons and smiling. And Adrian? He saw. He didn't know what to do. "When did it become public?" She looked toward the lake. "October 2024. Edenbridge had that fundraiser at the Harbor Club. I was supposed to speak about mobile prenatal access and I panicked. I couldn't get air. Adrian found me in the hallway and said people needed a reason to care. A personal reason." My stomach tightened. "What did he tell you to say?" Celeste closed her eyes. "He said, 'Tell them you're expecting. Just tonight. They'll understand why this mission matters.' And you did. I did. How many people? Maybe 80. The number sat between us. They stood up," she whispered. "They clapped." A woman hugged me and said now she understood why Edenbridge felt so urgent. For the first time since I lost the baby, people weren't looking at me like I had failed at being a mother. They were looking at me like I was proof that grief could turn into something beautiful. I wanted to feel only anger. Instead, pity rose first, unwanted and familiar. Then I thought of Penelope, holding that check. Who knew after that, Adrian? Eventually, Lenora suspected. My mother knew enough to tell everyone not to ask too many questions. "Why did you keep going?" "Because donations came in," she said. "Emails got answered. Grant meetings were easier." Adrian started changing the language. Expectant founder. Grief-informed maternal access. A mission born from motherhood. She said the phrases like she hated them and loved them at the same time. "And the Graves Pledge?" Celeste's eyes flicked to me. "What was the plan after it cleared?" "We hadn't decided." "Don't lie to me in the room where you asked for truth." Her jaw tightened. I said the words Lenora had given me. "Late loss." Celeste's face strained. "Adrian thought," she began, then stopped. "What did Adrian think?" "He thought after the Graves Pledge cleared, we could announce a stillbirth, or a late pregnancy loss. We would pause public appearances, turn the mobile unit into a memorial campaign, and people would understand why I disappeared." I stared at her. That was the moment the last soft excuse in me snapped. This had not been a lie told once in a hallway by a broken woman trying to breathe. This had become a communications plan. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked. "The monies was for real care," she said quickly. "The mobile unit was real. Women need that ultrasound access. Edenbridge has helped people, Maris. That part is real. You don't get to steal consent from people because the outcome sounds noble." Her eyes flashed. "You don't know what it is to lose a baby." "No," I said, "I don't, and I will not pretend I do. But Penelope knows grief. Sloane knows being used. Lenora knows fear. I know what it feels like to have my name turned into a signature I never gave." "You did not just lie about pain, Celeste. You used other people's pain as currency." She stood then, shaking. "You always had everything lined up. The good husband. The clean career. The perfect moral center. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible unless you're bleeding in front of people?" I stood too. Your pain explains how the first lie started. It doesn't explain why you kept signing your name under the rest. For a moment, neither of us moved, then Celeste crossed to a side table and picked up a folder. I was going to remove your name, she said. My chest tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a donor packet. Glossy pages, photos from the shower, Edenbridge branding, a paragraph describing Celeste's pregnancy as the emotional foundation of the mobile ultrasound program. Then I saw my face, me standing beside Celeste under the flowers, frozen in a moment before I understood what I was part of. Under it, the caption read, "Clinical social worker Maris Lorne has supported Celeste throughout the pregnancy and grief-informed outreach model." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Mara Whitcomb, my director at Maple Harbor Counseling Center. "Maris, please call me. Your name is appearing in materials connected to Edenbridge. We need to discuss this immediately." The cabin seemed to tilt. Celeste had not just endangered our friendship. She had dragged my license, my work, my reputation, every client who trusted me into the gravity of her lie. I folded the packet with hands that felt strangely steady. "I'm leaving." "Maris, wait." I walked to the door. Her voice followed me, small and sharp with old power. "You said you'd always come when I called." I stopped with my hand on the knob. For 25 years, that sentence would have turned me around. This time, I opened the door and walked out. Chapter 4. The donor letters. By the time I got back to Maryland, my phone had 16 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and 1 message from Mara Whitcomb that made my hands tighten around the steering wheel. "Please come to the center before you go home." Maple Harbor Counseling Center had always been the safest place in my life after my own house. It was a converted brick building near the water, blue-gray shutters, and a waiting room that smelled faintly of coffee and lavender hand soap. I had sat with grieving parents there. I had helped women leave marriages they were afraid to name out loud. I had taught clients how to trust their own instincts. That afternoon, I walked in feeling like I had ignored mine for 25 years. Mara was waiting in her office with the door closed. She was 52, practical, kind in the way people are kind when they cannot afford to be soft. A printed donor packet lay on her desk. "Maris, I need you to sit down." I did. She turned the packet toward me. There was my face again, standing beside Celeste under the baby shower flowers. Under the photo was the line I had seen at the cabin. "Clinical social worker Maris Lorne has supported Celeste throughout the pregnancy and grief-informed outreach model." My stomach dropped even though I already knew it was there. "I did not write that," I said. "I did not approve that. I was never an advisor for Edenbridge." Mara watched me carefully. "I believe you, but the center has to protect clients, your license, and our reputation. I need a written statement saying you did not provide clinical guidance to Edenbridge, did not confirm Celeste's pregnancy, and did not authorize the use of your name or image in donor solicitation." "I'll write it today." She softened slightly. "Is there more I need to know?" I thought of the journal in my kitchen drawer, the pages where grief turned into strategy. I thought of Lenora shaking hands. "There may be more," I said, "but the journal is private. It helped me understand the timeline. The real evidence is in donor letters, emails, grant language, and public posts, anything Celeste and Adrian used to raise money." Mara nodded once, "Then keep that line clear." Before I left her office, Ellis called. I stepped into the hallway and answered. "Dr. Pike sent a formal concern to Edenbridge's board and the foundation legal contact," he said. "Did he tell you anything private?" "No. He was careful. He said only that he had concerns about medical language and pregnancy claims being used in charitable solicitation in a way that could be misleading." Even in the middle of everything, I felt grateful for that. Dr. Pike was not gossiping. He was not turning Celeste's medical history into a weapon. He was drawing a line where the public fundraising materials had crossed into possible fraud. Later that afternoon, I met Sloane, Mercer, and Ophelia Grant at a small cafe near the center. I did not want to drag more people into this, but Sloane had texted me 6 times since the Facebook photos went up, and Ophelia said she had been worried since the shower. Sloane looked devastated before she said a word. "She borrowed money from me," she said, staring into her untouched tea, $4,200. "She said she needed to finish the nursery before the Graves visit. I thought it was for the baby," I whispered. "I'm not rich, Maris. That was studio money. Kiln repairs, supplies, rent." But she cried. She said Eden deserved one room that didn't feel like grief. Ophelia closed her eyes for a second, like a therapist forcing herself not to become one at the table. "I made her a keepsake set," Sloane said. "A little bowl, a handprint plate, a name tile." I sat there painting Eden in gold like that baby was coming home. I reached across the table and took her hand. Ophelia spoke quietly. "I'm not going to diagnose Celeste over coffee. But there is a pattern here. Complicated grief, performative dependency, maybe factitious presentation." Whatever words someone eventually uses, the important part is this: we can understand pain without becoming its servants. That sentence stayed with me, because I had been a servant for a very long time. The call I dreaded most was to Penelope Graves. She answered warmly, as if she thought I was calling to thank her. I could hear wind chimes in the background. "Maris dear, I was just thinking of you. Celeste is lucky to have a friend like you." I closed my eyes. "Mrs. Graves, I need to ask you something difficult. What exactly did Celeste tell you about the pledge?" Penelope's voice softened with memory. She told me Celeste had talked about Edward, her late husband, a pediatrician who believed every child deserved a healthy beginning. Celeste had promised the mobile ultrasound program would carry his name, the Edward Graves Memorial Mobile Unit. Then Penelope told me something Celeste had never mentioned. "I lost a baby girl before Edward and I had our sons," she said. "Only 3 days old. Celeste knew that," she said. "Eden made her feel close to mothers like me. She said grief could become care." My throat tightened so hard I could barely speak. "Did she send you a donor letter?" "Of course. Would you like me to forward it?" "Yes, please." The email arrived while we were still on the phone. I opened the attachment and saw the phrases immediately. As an expectant mother carrying a daughter I once thought grief had taken from me. With Maris Lorne's grief-informed guidance, my name again, my profession again. Silence turned into consent. Penelope was quiet for a long time after I told her I had not guided anything. Then she asked very softly, "Is there a baby?" I gripped the edge of my desk. "I have serious reason to believe the pregnancy story you were given is not true. I think you should pause the pledge and speak to your attorney." The silence that followed was worse than crying. Finally, Penelope said, "She knew which name would open my checkbook." That was when my anger stopped feeling messy and started feeling clean. By late afternoon, Diane Kellerman, chair of the Edenbridge board, called me. Her voice was controlled but strained. Penelope had filed a donor complaint. Dr. Pike's formal concern had reached the board. Accounts were being frozen temporarily while they reviewed charitable solicitation materials. "Please keep every email, text, donor packet, and public post you have," Diane said. "Do not delete anything. I won't. And Maris, I am sorry your name was used this way." After I hung up, Adrian called 3 times. I let it go to voicemail. His message was calm, almost bored. "Maris, you don't understand nonprofit optics. Don't ruin actual women's healthcare because you're hurt." I listened to it twice, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I wanted to remember how easily he made harm sound like strategy. Vivian called next. "You are betraying a woman who lost a child," she said. "No," I answered. "Protecting Celeste is not the same as protecting the lie." She hung up on me. Within an hour, a post appeared in a local women's circle chat. Vague but pointed. Vivian wrote about dangerous husbands, fragile mothers, and friends who let suspicion destroy compassion. My name was not mentioned, but everyone knew. Then the Severna Park Community Facebook group lit up with a new post. Questions raised about Edenbridge founder's pregnancy and donor event. By evening, June Harlan, a local reporter, had left a message asking if I wanted to comment. I did not yet. The community split exactly the way painful things split people. Some said no one should attack a woman after miscarriage. Others asked why a nonprofit needed a pregnancy story to raise money. My name kept appearing in screenshots because my face was in the packet, smiling beside a lie. Then a woman named Clara Mendez called from the Maryland Attorney General's Charities Division. "This is not a criminal raid," she said, calm and precise. "At this stage, it is a charitable solicitation inquiry involving possible donor misrepresentation. Preserve all materials. Donor letters, grant language, emails, board documents. Private journals are not what we are focused on unless counsel determines otherwise." Her professionalism steadied me and terrified me at the same time. This was no longer a friendship crisis. It was official. It was raining by the time Graham Rowan called. "Maris, she's gone," he said. "Who's gone?" "Celeste." Board froze the accounts, and she left the house. She took some personal cash, not nonprofit money as far as I know. Adrian's saying he only tried to keep Edenbridge alive. Mom's calling lawyers. "Lenora is losing it." My mouth went dry. "Why are you calling me?" "Because Lenora thinks if Celeste goes anywhere, it'll be you." 10 minutes later, a text came from a number I did not recognize. I didn't know where else to go. I stood in my living room with the rain tapping hard against the windows. Ellis was on his way home from the hospital, then the doorbell rang. Chapter 5. The last door I opened. For Harry opened the door and found Celeste Rowan standing on my porch in the rain. For one strange second, my mind refused to connect her to the woman from the baby shower. There was no soft pink dress, no hand resting over a perfect curve, no careful glow under expensive lighting. Her hair was soaked flat against her cheeks. Her face was bare and pale. Her sweater hung loose over a body that looked smaller than I remembered, almost childlike in the porch light. I didn't know where else to go, she said. The words hit me harder than they should have. When we were 14, Celeste had shown up at my house after a school dance, mascara running down her face because some boy had kissed another girl by the gym doors. She had said the exact same thing then. I had pulled her inside, given her my pajamas, and stayed awake until morning telling her she was loved. Back then, saving Celeste had felt like friendship. Now it felt like a test. I stepped aside. Come in. She looked relieved too quickly, like some old part of her had expected the door to open because it always had. I handed her a towel and put water on for tea. Then I set my phone on the kitchen counter where she could see it and texted Ellis. She's here. Celeste saw my thumb move. You told him? Yes. Her face tightened. Maris, I won't lie to my husband for you. The words came out quietly, but they changed the air in the room. Celeste wrapped the towel around her shoulders and looked down at the floor like I had slapped her. I'm not asking you to lie, she said. You came here after disappearing from your house during a charity inquiry. I panicked. You have been panicking for a year and a half, Celeste. At some point panic became planning. She flinched, then recovered. She had always been good at recovering. And soaking wet in my kitchen, she knew how to find the angle that made her look most wounded. They're making me sound like a monster. I breathed in slowly. I could hear the rain tapping against the windows, the hum of the refrigerator, the tiny click of the kettle starting to heat. No one had to make you sound like anything. The donor letters did that, the packet did that, the photos did that. Her eyes filled. I lost a baby. I know. No, you don't know. You keep saying you know, but you don't. You don't know what it feels like to wake up and feel empty in your own body. I did not argue with that. I would not take a grief I had not lived and pretend I understood its shape. You're right, I said. I don't know that exact pain, and I am still sorry you went through it. For a moment. She softened, then I continued. But Penelope lost a husband and a daughter. Sloane gave you money she could not afford to lose. Lenora has been afraid inside her own family. Women who needed Edenbridge may lose care because donors can't trust the program now. Your pain was real, Celeste. So was the damage. She looked away. Adrian wrote most of those letters, but who signed them? Silence. He said it would be temporary. But who stood in front of Penelope with your hand on a fake belly? Her mouth trembled. My mother kept saying if we stopped suddenly, people would ask questions, but who let my name stay in the packet? That time she had no answer at all. The front door opened before she could find one. Ellis stepped inside, rain on his jacket, his expression calm in the way that had once annoyed me and now steadied me. He had changed out of his hospital clothes. He looked like my husband, not a doctor arriving at a scene. Celeste stiffened. I'm not here to hurt you, Ellis said. You already did. No, he said, interrupted a lie before Maris became part of it. She turned from him like the truth had a temperature she could not stand. Ellis looked at me, then back at Celeste. Clara Mendez has been in contact with the board and local authorities. If you voluntarily speak with them, it matters. Running makes this worse. Authorities, Celeste repeated, as if the word belonged to another language. You make it sound like I'm dangerous. You are in trouble, Ellis said. That is not the same thing, but you need to stop making it worse. Celeste laughed then, a thin, broken sound. There's a producer, she said. A documentary producer. She messaged me after the Facebook post started spreading. She said stories like mine could open a conversation about grief and mental illness. If I tell it first, people might understand. I stared at her. Even now, with rainwater pooling under her shoes and investigators calling board members, she was still trying to shape the stories before she faced it. You are still trying to choose the camera angle, I said. Her face changed. For 1 second, I saw rage break through the grief. That is easy for you to say. You have Ellis. You have your clean career, your clean conscience. Everyone always believes Maris because Maris is sensible and kind and never needs too much. I needed plenty, I said. Just learn to need quietly because there was never room beside you. She blinked. I had never said anything like that to her before. I am not perfect, I said. For years I confused loyalty with silence. I let you use my kindness like a joint bank account. Thought loving you meant never asking the hard question. But I was wrong. Loving someone does not mean becoming the place they hide the truth. A knock came at the door. Celeste turned so fast the towel slipped from her shoulders. Ellis moved first, but I raised a hand. Through the window beside the door I saw 2 local officers standing under the porch light. Not a raid. Not guns drawn. They were there to bring Celeste in for questioning connected to the donor complaints and the charitable solicitation inquiry, not to treat her like a violent criminal. Just 2 people in rain jackets carrying the weight of consequences. Celeste looked toward the back of the house. I stepped into the kitchen doorway, not touching her, not blocking her with force, only standing where she would have to look at me if she ran. If you run, I said, Adrian gets to write the story. Vivian gets to call you unstable. Everyone gets to decide what you were. If you walk out that front door, at least one choice today is yours. Her breathing shook. Do you think I'm a monster? No. Her eyes searched mine like she wanted the old version of me back, the one who would soften the sentence until it could not hurt her. I did not give her that woman. I think you were hurt, I said. And then you hurt people. I think I loved who you were, and I can't protect what you did. Something in her collapsed, not dramatically, not beautifully. She simply folded inward as if the performance had finally run out of oxygen. Will you tell them I came here? I'll tell them you didn't make me hide you. She nodded once, then she walked to the front door. When Ellis opened it, the officers spoke gently. Celeste did not fight. She stepped onto the porch and into the rain, small under the yellow light, and for the first time in days, there was no belly between her and the truth. After they took her, the house went so quiet it felt staged. Like the room after everyone leaves, and the set is still standing, but the story has ended. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They never do. It came in letters, statements, phone calls, and headlines small enough for local news, but large enough to ruin a name. Edenbridge's accounts stayed frozen, while the board reviewed every donor communication. The Graves Family Foundation paused the $185,000 pledge and demanded restitution for any funds obtained through false representation. Adrian was subpoenaed over donor letters, grant edits, and emails that showed he had shaped the language around Celeste as an expectant founder. Within weeks, his publishing job quietly ended. Vivian was asked to step down from the Rowan Women's Circle and lost the charity board seat she had guarded like a crown. Celeste accepted a path that was not mercy without consequence. Probation, restitution, mandatory psychiatric treatment, cooperation with investigators, a public correction to donors. It happened that way because she surrendered voluntarily, because some funds were recovered, because she had no prior record, and because an evaluation confirmed what many of us had seen too late. Grief had broken something in her, but it had not signed those letters for her. I gave my statement to Maple Harbor Counseling Center. Mara Whitcomb confirmed. I had never advised Edenbridge, never approved the packet, never confirmed the pregnancy, and never consented to my name or image being used. I kept my license. I kept my work. More importantly, I kept the part of myself that had almost been trained out of me. The part that knew truth did not become cruelty just because someone cried when you said it. A few months later, a letter came from the inpatient treatment facility where Celeste was staying. I waited 2 days before opening it. Her handwriting was smaller than I remembered. She wrote that recovery was teaching her the difference between an apology and a performance. She wrote that she was learning how often she had turned pain into a stage. She did not ask me to visit. She did not ask me to forgive her. For once, she did not ask me to become part of her healing. I cried anyway. Then I placed the letter in an old photo box with a picture of 2 14-year-old girls sitting on a dock at Lake Anna, knees sunburned, faces open. Still young enough to believe promises could not become chains. I still loved the girl Celeste had been. Maybe some part of me always will, but I finally understood that compassion is not the same as access. You can hope someone heals and still not give them the keys to your life again. So I will ask you this. If it had been your best friend, someone you loved for 25 years, would you have protected her? Or would you have protected everyone she was lying to?